Enjoy your evening.
Thanks so much, Linda. So just a little bit more, I will also be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions throughout, the panelists and I, have discussed prior to that, if you do have a question, we want to make sure that it gets answered fairly quickly, just so that way we're still on that topic instead of getting away from it and trying to circle back to it. So if you do have a question, feel free to put it in the chat and I will be monitoring that and kind of interrupting as it allows here. So without further ado, I will turn it over to the panelists, Liz Potash and Sean Bean and Dan Stover. I will let them go ahead and start introducing themselves, giving you all a brief bio so that way you get to know them a little bit better.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Liz Potash. I'm sorry you have to see me 2 weeks in a row here, but tonight we're talking about professional development on the PE side. So I'm fortunate to teach in the Council Rock School District. It's located in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which is in the southeastern part of the state. I teach elementary PE, but I also oversee our health and phys ed programs for the district. So there are 14 schools in the district, approximately 40 plus teachers that I help to oversee the curriculum, and I also provide our professional development. So when I was asked to be a part of this panel tonight, it seemed, like a good fit because this is something I have a lot of experience with.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Bean, and I teach at Cranberry Junior Senior High School. That is in Cranberry Area School District. We are considerably smaller than what Liz is, and we have actually only two schools. We have one elementary school and one middle school, high school, and they are all on the same campus. This is my 20th year of teaching, and I have been the department coordinator here at my school, overseeing only four total, and so that has been since about 2010, and so I've been involved with a lot of different things district wide, and so I'm looking forward to being able to share some insight tonight on some things that I have personally been part of in regards to what we're talking about tonight, and so hopefully that shows benefit for you, and if I can be of any help, I'd be happy to do that.
I'm Dan Stover. I work in the Souderton area school district. I'm in my 24th year, 23 of which have been at the same elementary school. And I live and work in the county adjacent to where Liz teaches. And for reference, I can be in the city of Philadelphia from my current location in about 45 minutes. I can't get to Liz's school for an hour. So, I mean, they are two giant counties sprawling in the southeastern portion of the state, like Liz said. But yeah, I am going to provide a little bit of a different perspective for the professional development that we're going to discuss here tonight.
Awesome. Thank you three so much for the introduction of yourself and a little history for what you are representing tonight. So we will get started with the experience of it. And as you heard, we have some three very unique and different takes on professional development and how it's being developed within their districts. So we are actually going to start with Sean, if you don't mind. With being a smaller school, you pretty much run that for your district. And then we'll move on to Liz, who will speak more of developing with the IU focus. So we will start with Sean. Go ahead.
Okay, so yes, as stated, my district is considerably smaller up in the northwestern part of Pennsylvania, and we basically, when we look at trying to host activities and try to bring networking together, it's really worthwhile for us to bring other districts into this and try to figure out how we can go about doing that. And I've actually been able to do that two different times at my school where we've hosted an event where we have brought other schools into ours and hosted that process. And so with that, I think one of the things that worked well for us in order to do that was to really make sure that what we were doing was reaching the districts personally for us, being able to communicate with them about what we were trying to accomplish. There is a procedure to the process. It's not just something that you automatically shoot out to these other districts and just say, well, here it is. That's not it doesn't work quite that way. But what I would say is, if whether or not you're the department chairperson or you're just somebody in the department, uh, it's great to actually network with your district, talk to your chairperson, say, hey, this is an idea that I have. Or if you are the chairperson, it's great to bring that to your department and say, here's an idea that I think that we actually have. This I think would work good. You don't have to have all of the details laid out, but you need to have some ideas about how you would end up trying to host this concept and how you would go about inviting them. So you need to make sure that your administration is involved with that process. I think that's a crucial piece. So I did put together a little bit of a document that goes kind of, it summarizes, but it is step by step for you, that how I have done that. It doesn't mean it's the only way to do it, but it is one way that you can do that. And we've had success with that. So again, if that's something that as I go through this, if you are interested in seeing that documentation, I'd be happy to email that to you. I have that on a PDF file for you to look at, and we can go through those steps. And again, that should help things quite a bit for you. But I would say initially, once you come up with that general idea about what you think you want to be able to do, at that point, it's really important that your department chair goes and talks to your administration and says, here's what we were thinking, and this is why we were thinking that. One of the key pieces to that, though, is to make sure that you understand that you're going to have questions from your administration. You're going to have the questions coming back. Well, why do we need to do this? What's the importance? What benefit does it have to the district, to the students? What are we getting out of this? Is there going to be cost involved? Those type of things that you need to make sure that you kind of cover all those tracks. It'll save you a lot of headache if you're able to do that in advance. For us in particular, me personally as a department chair, reaching out after I got the okay from administration, reaching out to other school districts, I think was a very important piece. I was able to communicate with the principals from the other schools during principal meetings and communicate why we felt this was important. The fact that we needed to have some things that were standard based that allowed us the capabilities to dive into what are really important topics in our particular field, things that we deal with on a regular basis. And so by me being able to present that to the principals, communicate that to them, and then it trickled down, and I was able to then reach out to their department chairs and give them a personal invite. Once we go through that personal invite to them, explain what it is that we're looking to try to do. We have a general idea that we lay out for them. In the past, I have done morning sessions where were discussion topics where we discussed all the things that really come into play for elementary, middle school, high school, and also just full-on health classes. We actually broke them up into 3 separate groups, which was a health, elementary, and then we did middle school, high school as a combined effort. And when we split them into smaller groups, everybody had an opportunity to have a voice, have something that they could say and share. And we just generated some topics, some conversation, and some things that we knew that needed to be kind of, in a sense, helping us be better at what we do. And some of those things included assessment, curriculum ideas. It also went into, when we talked about the standards, there's a lot of standards that sometimes get missed throughout the year, and how can we reach these particular standards, and what are some creative ways for us to do that? How do we deal with students that are on medical or that have injuries in class? Because every school seems to handle it a little bit differently. We also talked at those particular sessions not just about your lesson development, but unit progression. And what did your unit progression look like from day one? If you had For example, in my class, so, we're 2 week units, so it's five lessons every other day. So for us, it's what does day one look like? What does day five look like? And in between, what does that look like? So we discuss those things as well. Really think that those type of topics into play. Some of the major ones on top of that were modifications that have to do with our lessons and how we can put those into play, from IEPs to 504 plans. We see a lot of that kind of stuff that we need to make sure that we're meeting those as well. So those were topics that we broke up and let everybody have some say in what they did and how it worked and how they communicated that with the people that they needed to communicate that with at their school. I think that went really well. Smaller groups for us worked. And when I say smaller groups, both times that we hosted an event, I would say we were in the neighborhood of between 30 to 45 other staff members, teachers that from other districts that came in. I think we had about 8 districts that we were able to invite that came in, and that gave us an opportunity then to really hear best practices across the board, and really in our surrounding districts to kind of feel like everybody got on the same page. We had a topic at our host as a host that said that we wanted one voice, but your way. And that gave us an opportunity for for the teachers to say, we don't all have to do it perfectly the same, but we need the best practices in order to do that. So that was our morning session. And the afternoon sessions, we had all of our basically every district that showed up, they would bring one activity that really worked well, but there was a requirement for them to be able to present that activity. So when they would present it, they had to make sure that they showed the adaptations for that lesson. They needed to be able to show lesson progression for that, the types of assessments that they would also do. So those are some things that they really needed to be able to provide for everybody, because those are questions that we were all going to need. And so we've completed all of that. And when we were done, we provided them with a quick survey, and that survey allowed them to be able to just kind of give us some feedback so that we could build on it for the future. Again, I thought that was really helpful for us. We did provide them Act 48 credits, which I know we'll talk about. So there's good ways to do that. Fortunately for me, we did it through our school. So yeah, I think when we look at being able to host and look at ways to try to do that, if you're not comfortable reaching out and making this huge thing, it's really maybe a good idea to start at a smaller level and start easy. Not everybody can do that. We've heard some of the districts and so forth are very large. So, if you had 2 districts, you'd have a lot of people there. So I understand that as well. So again, it depends on how you want to do that and what your district will allow. It may be done in smaller sections or with not with everybody at one time. In my situation, it's not as big of a deal to have 4 people out at it from your school and invite a few extra people in at the same time. Certainly want to make sure you have the facility in order to do that as well. So those are some things that I would start with to share. Again, I've been able to do that twice. I know next year we're looking to host another one, and I definitely want to try to expand on that a little bit more. Maybe invite a few extra schools this time around. So I think I'll probably leave it there for now, and I could certainly add more later on as questions come up, and we can dive back into it.
Great. Thank you, Sean. I'll give a little bit of a different feel. So I'm in my 14th year as coordinator and 23rd year teaching. So if you do the math, I didn't feel exactly prepared when I was put into the coordinator role. And one of the biggest things that my concern was providing meaningful professional development. So that was an area that I really wanted to make sure that, I kind of hit the nail on the head for. And Dan's going to talk to this a little bit in more detail. But I think one of the biggest things that you want to be able to present For me, it's easy. I'm given so many in-service days a year that are with my staff, and it's expected of me to provide meaningful professional development. And without ever having really formal training in it, I had to do a lot of learning on my own. But what Dan's going to really speak to is, I think it's easy sometimes as phys ed teachers to say, hey, let's get together and talk about what games you play. And that's not professional development. That's anything that you could probably find online through social media, and a lot of other avenues are games. But what we really want to do is provide meaningful and relevant, professional development for our staff. And to be able to do that, you have to have a pretty good feel in terms of, where your staff is and where your district is, and what that looks like. So I'll give a couple examples. This past February, I'm fortunate I do have a budget that goes along with my position, and I budget, some money into the professional development side. So I've been very fortunate to be able to bring in some paid speakers over the years, and then of course I rely on, free speakers as well. And then I tap my own staff as well, right? Depending on what the need is and what we're looking for. But this past February, we have a pickleball facility that opened up in Newtown, and they were trying to get a little bit, more into the district. So they got me in touch with him, and I was able to bring my staff there for about 2 hours in the afternoon. Was not one of our cheaper ventures. But I said to them, we're not just going to go play pickleball for 2 hours. That's not professional development. So I tapped my one middle school staff who does a lot of pickleball in their curriculum, and they were charged with teaching all 40 of us, what are the basic skills? What do the drills look like? What are the, lifetime implications? And so it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. They went through all of those pieces, and then, there was time to play as well, which is good social interaction for everyone. And I was at a meeting a couple weeks later, and our music coordinator said, hey, I heard your staff played pickleball in February, can I get my staff? And I said, is pickleball in your curriculum? Like, what are you talking about, right? Like, you can't just go play pickleball. So as long as it's, relevant and meaningful, it was able to be done. And like, I still have an in-service day this school year. We got one added late in the calendar towards the end of May. So we're going to be doing some, some things in the morning. I'm actually getting my staff recertified in first aid, CPR, and AED. That was something that I did through our professional development 2 years ago, and now everyone's certifications are coming up, so we're going to recertify in the morning. But in the afternoon, we're actually going to be teaching backyard games. And I thought this is the perfect time to do it because as we're coming into the summer months, again, I always talk about what is relevant and meaningful. As our kids are going to graduation parties and barbecues and family picnics and they're heading down on the beach, it is a good thing to be able to show them, and what do we tie into that? We look at all of the skills that are associated with backyard games, and we talk about the strategies, and to Sean's point, what are the modifications so that all students can be included? And all of that is wrapped within our standards. So those are just two kind of examples of things going on very recently. But like I said, I'm fortunate because I do have the time. When there's a in-service day, it is my job to provide professional development and to make it meaningful for my staff. So again, I know Dan's going to speak to this. Last year, I was really fortunate. We got a grant from the American Heart Association, and I was able to bring an open phys ed trainer in and provide 3 hours of professional development, and they do an amazing job. But I don't want to steal Dan's thunder. I've also brought in other types of speakers that both paid and not paid, both on the phys ed side and the health side. And I think one of, for me, it's easy. I can write something up. We get the Act 48 credit, but I've done other things to involve other districts. I've involved other districts at small scales. We're right next door to Central Buck School District, and we've done, a lot of work together. So we've brought our staffs together in the past. And again, just taking the lead on what is it that we need. And then the other piece as well is that in Bucks County, we have a Bucks County Intermediate Unit. There are 13 schools in the county, and every other year, our county is charged with providing a common in-service day. And we invite, pretty much everyone. And I've been on the planning committee for that as well for many years now. So that looks a bit larger. We will host up to about 200 people. And again, it's, a combined effort of using some of our free resources and then also, what monies do we have available to be able to bring in some different speakers. But everything needs to be standards based. And again, it needs to be relevant and meaningful to what your district needs. And I think the best way to be able to find that out is, if you're on different committees at the school level, or you can just speak to people in the at the district level. Our content is so relevant in so many ways. And when you can show administration that you can provide that through our content area, well, the only way you're going to do that is if provide the professional development for your staff. So if your staff has, wellness goals on their comprehensive school plan, or, if they're looking at their PAYS survey results and they're seeing, deficiencies in areas, that's an easy win for health and phys ed. And when we can do that, it's an easy then win to be able to turn around and say, well, hey, I can provide professional development in that way. And I think the nice thing with it is, you're not alone when it comes to providing PD. You jump on Shape's website, you jump on Shape America's website. I'll give Gary a shout out. He's on here. He runs a Distinguished PE podcast. Like, you have so many resources that you can pull from that you don't have to be an expert yourself. And you can call somebody and say, hey, my staff needs this. How can I help you with it? So whether your staff is providing you, or I'm sorry, whether your district is providing you a large budget, no budget, you really can get creative in how you build that meaningful professional development. And even if you just have, one colleague in another district who can help you get started, it really is huge. I said I do a lot of work with Central Bucks. They have a position, similar to mine, and we do a ton of work together because now I'm able to kind of broaden out, the cast, and I can get a feel for what it is that our students need. And so whether you're pulling it from, district data or comprehensive plans, or you're just going to, for myself, I try to do as many webinars and conferences as I can, because to Sean's point, like, it's really hard for people to get out of the building. I have a little more flexibility. So I feel like it is my job to get out and do as much professional development as possible so that when I come back to my staff, I can, kind of share with them as much as I possibly can. So, it's a win if your district is going to provide the time and allow you to use that time for your content area. If not, obviously, then you need to be able to advocate for yourself to get out and to be able to get to some other professional developments. But, like Sean said too, I'll kind of leave it there. I'm happy to be a free resource, all right, for anyone that needs it, in terms of how I can help, provide meaningful professional development, because I know we did the session last week on advocacy, but our best tool is providing meaningful, instruction to our students. And to be able to do that, we also have to, develop our staff to give them the tools to be able to do that.
I'm going to tag in if that's okay. I think Liz touched on the maybe conundrum that plagues the entire profession, and that would be that we use games and fun stuff to deliver the formal curriculum. And from the outside looking in, that's what draws the comments of your job must be so fun. You get to dress in comfy clothes and play awesome games and blah, blah, blah. I mean, we've all heard them before. But in reality, without you actually engaging in those activities, you might be leaving things on the table that can benefit the next generation of students. And the specific example that I can cite to that is a couple years ago, my department had some time where we visited a local community park and we did activities including bucket golf and ultimate frisbee and pickleball. And without having done that, like, I had never come across bucket golf before, but yet after doing that and experiencing that, I now have two sets that I can use in my curriculum. And if we're supposed to be teaching like the concept of lifetime sports, and golf and pickleball aren't part of your programs in some capacity, you may be missing out. So again, it's one of those dual-edged swords where yes, we do games and activities, but it again, it's intentional, it's purposeful, it's meaningful, it's to teach those lifetime concepts. One of the things that I'd like to do real quickly is I'd like to share my screen to show the platform that my specific school district uses. It's called Frontline. It used to be ASOP. We use it to manage professional growth and absences, that kind of thing. And if I expand the navigation here and I click on activity catalogs, you'll see that Montgomery County, Berks County, Bucks County, and Chester County are all the surrounding IUs that I have access to their activity catalogs. So when Liz's IU, Bucks County, hosts one of these common in-service days, usually around election day, my district, I can access it without any kind of friction. We can sign up for it and we can attend within like a 1.5, 2 hour radius. So that stuff happens just organically on the fly without any need for any kind of additional paperwork being done or Act 48 credit being, I mean, it's already a mechanism that's in place that applies to a huge chunk of southeastern Pennsylvania. The second thing that I wanted to touch on is regarding the intentionality of the content that is being presented. So I always think it will be a good idea to have somebody at the helm that any potential presenters would bounce their stuff off of and run it through just to make sure that you're doing things that are meaningful and intentional. This is a presentation that I did at a recent Shape PA conference, and this is just basically how I craft my lessons now, where I have learning targets, I have objectives, I have ways to modify the activities, I have ways to kind of focus in on a key element or aspect of the activity. If you look at my learning targets up here, there is a knowledge based, there is a skill based, and then there's an understandings based, so that even the less athletically inclined still have a pathway to succeed. Uh, but again, this would be for like a team handball kind of activity. So I have a specific progression in mind where we build in a way that makes sense. And we end with a full version of a game that I call Star Ball, in which case a team has to complete 5 consecutive passes to score a point. This is how I build out my lessons. If I was spending multiple classes on it, I guess you could call it if I was doing a unit on team handball. And I want you to see the difference where it's, if I'm just doing a one-off class, I just have some keys to success for a particular activity. This was a dance lesson that was based on concepts like beat and rhythm and that kind of thing. So again, the intentionality of the content has to be there if we hope to maintain that. I mean, this is an academic subject complete with standards in the same way that your math class is and your social studies curriculum is. Liz mentioned open. And I believe we had an open presenter, Joe Dixon, on a moment ago. But if you haven't been to varsityuniversity.org, it is a fantastic resource. This particular module that they have crafted kind of goes along with the concepts of invasion games that you'll see in my content up here. But I wanted to just quickly go over some of the ways that they break it down, and it's far more expansive than even what I had here. So they have overviews for the entirety of the lesson module here. And to be clear, I did not include this entire module. It ended up being something like 80 pages by the time all was said and done. But they'll walk you through and they'll have a basic table of contents of all the different activities that are included in the module. They'll have here's some links to the materials that you'll need to make it happen. And then they break down each of the different activities, complete with targets, cues, equipment setup, procedures, that kind of stuff. And the nice thing is they provide some ideas for questions that you can use to debrief and how to focus your strategies. They even provide some academic vocabulary along the way. So I guess, again, my main message would be whenever you do decide to go down this road of hosting a professional development session, um, you have to make sure that the content that's being presented is intentional and meaningful. I think I'm still sharing my screen, working on it.
One thing I can add to about Dan's point to Open, one of the nicest things about their curriculum is that you can edit all of their things as well. So if you're looking at something and it doesn't work or it doesn't make sense for your district, it's actually all editable also.
I just was going to add real quick, Dan, based off what you were going through, but and talking about that intentionality. That it really is a crucial piece. I really can't stress that enough. I'm sure all of you would agree that, you know, if you're deciding to try to host something, whether it's just in district, whether you're with other districts, or you're inviting multiple districts, when you first present that, if you're going to have a conversation with your administration about that, if you don't have everything kind of lined up properly to be able to show that, hey, this, we're not just getting together just to play, like that's not what this is. This is about us becoming better professionals, us being able to offer a better product, and this is why we're offering a better product. Our district is better. We need our professionals in our field to be better, and we need to be able to do that, because if we can, and we have best practices and we're intentional with our work, we know for a fact that our students are going to benefit from that. And that is, as Dan mentioned, that is changing the next generation. You're making an impact to the next generation based off making yourself better, getting yourself involved, and doing things with purpose and meaning. And I think that that's a crucial piece when you're presenting that to your administration, or if you're talking to other administrators from another school, of why that is so important. It is easily something that we can connect, as Liz mentioned. It's easy to be able to showcase why what we teach is so important to not just us and not just our staff, but also to the student body. It's just a matter of making sure that, you know, you kind of do your homework. You don't have to do it yourself, as mentioned. You know, use the great resources that are out there, and network that, you know, in advance. But I've always liked the idea of making sure that when you go to do something like this, you definitely want to make sure, put a little time into it, you know, in advance. Don't just kind of throw something together, because the end result is your administration will look at that, and if it turns out really good and they go, wow, this was excellent, that's really gonna give you a lot of benefit moving forward. You know, when you want to try to do that in the future.
I can add to that too, Sean, that whenever I provide our professional development, I invite our administration to come. My supervisor of curriculum and instruction, she has an invite on every single, activity that we do, and there are times that she'll show up. I've had superintendents come and participate alongside with us and be a part of it. So don't be afraid to invite administration. Even like the Shape PA conference, they have discounts for administrators. When you kind of show everyone, this is what we are actually doing, that speaks volumes. And when they can come and participate, you've now got a lot of buy-in. And so where maybe you didn't have a budget to bring people in, maybe you get a couple dollars here and there each year, and now you can start to kind of expand what that looks like. But feel free, to invite people into the mix of that. I was always fortunate too that I had a couple upper level administrators who started off as health and phys ed teachers. So for them, it was a fun one for them to come to. In our high schools, we have liaisons for the health and phys ed department. So I've had them participate with us in the past. And even if they only stop down for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is, invite them to be a part of the professional development so that they can see what's actually occurring.
Well, thank you so much. So moving on, I know we talked a little bit about the approval process. Sean, you talked quite a bit about that as far as on your end, making sure you have all your I's dotted, your T's crossed as to what exactly this is going to look like and how we're reaching those standards. So moving on from that, is there anything specifically like IU, if you're going to host it at the district, how does that go working with the IU and not just other school districts?
Uh, we use the same platform that Dan spoke of. So for us, it's built in. Once we go ahead and when I put through the proposal for what I want that day to look like, it has to get approved through my professional development department. And assuming that gets approved through that department, then it gets sent to the state. So all that's required from there, people sign up through the platform. I mark their attendance, and then they have to do an evaluation at the end, and then that would get them the credits that they need. I've never had to go out and actually do anything with the state. Same thing when I do it through the IU. It's all provided through the provider that I go through.
Let me just add real quick on that, just specifically when we're talking about getting the professional development approved as far as Act 48 credits and those kind of things. With my district being so small, I think that's probably one of the reasons. I don't know specifically because that's not in my department. That's not something we deal with. But I will tell you that for us, when I basically presented the information to the principal and explained what we wanted to be able to do for the professional development, I asked about the Act 48 credits and said, I think it would be good. We need to make sure that we offer that so that everybody understands that they can get that. It's worth their time. And so for us, all I had to be able to do was explain what it is, provide a schedule for the day, and turn that into my principal secretary. Now, the principal secretary has a form that's done through our district that they provide that, and then that gets approved by our superintendent. And that's all I had to do with that process. Mine was pretty simple, but again, it doesn't. Every district's going to be a little bit different with that on how that's handled. Like my district doesn't have a professional development person. That's basically our business manager, who I think it's just lumped into what they do. And so ultimately, it's a little probably, I don't want to say simplified process. It's just more of a localized process. So that may be the case in your district. And if you're not sure, I would ask your administrator how you would go about doing that. If you were hosting that, say, you might want to say, how would I go about making sure that we can get Act 48 hours for people that if we were hosting something, and just see what they'll tell you.
I think one of the things too to think about is, of course, hosting something, is a great idea. And if you can get a lot of people together, that's great. But if you're starting really small, if you're on this webinar and you just want to know how do I get started, just reach out to, somebody else and have that conversation. And if you're okay with not getting credit so far and just saying, what does this look like in your district, or, really small scale, how did you put this together? Or what are some of your favorite standards-based activities and how can I tie them into my curriculum? Those are great starts of conversations, and there's different committees I know that Shape PA runs that can help you start that conversation. For us at the very smallest scale, when we first started really doing a lot of our standards-based work, it was through professional learning communities. And before the 2024 national standards came out, the previous ones, they did a lot of categorizing activities into team games, lifetime activities, and fitness activities. And that was just the very basis of where we started. To be able to get everyone to just wrap their heads around, we need to provide more than just team games. And once we started just having that small scale conversation and saying, okay, what are we doing in these 3 areas and how do we expand that and what does that look like? Then it made professional development so much easier because we knew you're not just coming in, to Dan and Sean's point, we're not just coming and playing games, right? How are we providing all of these different types of, activity for our students, and really gives you kind of a good way to reframe your mind around what that looks like. And, I think we talked about this last week a little bit as well, but the importance of obviously having administration on your side is that, to Dan's point, where everyone thinks we just get to dress in comfy clothes and play games, a lot of people also only associate a phys ed with what their experience was. So if their experience as an administrator, if they played dodgeball and climbed ropes, we've got a lot of education to do, right, to catch them up to what we're doing now. So, I think there's a lot of pieces that go along with that. But if the idea of applying for Act 48 and involving other districts is like way over your head, start small. Just reach out to one person, and find out, okay, I want to get better at, improving my education, and I want to, develop myself. Who do I need to reach out to do that?
And without the opportunities for quality professional development, I don't know how many more artificial intelligence workshops you can sit through, or first in math, or things like that that don't apply to us at all. But the danger there is the next step is, okay, we hear you loud and clear. You now are all .8 contracts instead of full-time contracts, and you don't need to come in for these days, nor do you get paid for them.
Good points there for sure. Yeah, you don't ever want to go backwards in a contract. So if we can be proactive and get out there and make these professional developments happen, I think that is very important for sure. So then how do you advertise, right? We're talking, okay, so how do we taking it from planning it to now advertising? How do we get people to participate? What is your main plug, so to speak, as to getting people involved from the different levels?
Again, from the district level, it's pretty simple. If you want your Act 48 and you're going to participate in our in-service day, that's the email goes out with all of the information. But of course, to make it enticing to my staff, I want to make sure that the professional development is meaningful. So again, just always trying to set it up with, I always have some type of health focus and some type of PE focus included for K to 12. When we do it at the county level, we'll send out, flyers and social media posts to be able to, broadcast it out to a fairly large network in terms of what it is that is coming. And again, when you provide meaningful professional development and it's something that people have to be a part of, they want to come because they know they're going to get something out of it. So for, on my two levels in terms of what my experience has been, it could be as simple as a couple emails or, a couple social media posts. And, I think Sean mentioned this as well. If you have people in surrounding districts, who serve as the coordinator, or you just have a phys ed contact, just reaching out to them and letting them help spread the word is a great opportunity as well.
I would say one of the things that I've done quite a bit. I attend up Slippery Rock University up here has a mini convention every year, and that's one of the things I try to go to because I try to network. And typically speaking, those are going to be colleagues of mine in surrounding districts that I don't see very often, maybe once or twice a year. But it's a great opportunity for me to make sure that I'm going around and seeing them and communicating with them and saying, hey, just want to let you know I'm working on this for next year, or I'm working on this for this year, whatever the case is, and try to get that kind of that bug into their ear to advertise to them. And for me personally, it's not an option for everybody. I get that to have a personal interaction, and I don't get a chance to see every single person. But when I have an opportunity and I see somebody from another district, even if I don't know who they are, I can see it on their shirt or whatever the case is. And I try to make it a point to go and communicate that with them and say, hey, listen, we're going to have this. We'd love to hear what you have to say, what you can share, so we can all try to kind of grow together. I think that's a really important factor. So I use different conferences like that to be able to communicate that. I've done that even at when we talk about the state convention, I've communicated there. It's really neat. Not that I'm expecting anybody from the east side of the state to come across. That's not really realistic. But point is, you can get some ideas too, and be able to share how you can actually go about reaching some of those people. And so, for me, in short, I think it's great. Doing something where you can kind of get your name out here like this and say this is what we're trying to do. Personalize it, communicate with somebody that direction, and that also works. We have actually the last 3 years, we've actually done some where our districts. I'm trying to think. I want to say maybe 7 or 8, maybe 9 districts in the surrounding area. We've come together and have done a county-wide in-service, which that was kind of new to us. That's not something that we've ever really done, but that was a great opportunity for me to communicate because they set it up where our county met up with just health and PE, and that was I had everybody there. And it was perfect to be able to say, hey, I think this would be a great opportunity for us to be able to do that. So again, it's the same kind of basis, but I'm using that personal piece when I see them in person to be able to do that at the conventions and things, which is another reason to continue to attend some of those conventions if you can, the conferences when you can. It's not always possible. Districts sometimes make it very difficult, as we know. But and if you don't have that option, create something that looks good even on a flyer, just for someone to reach out to you to communicate and say, hey, I got this flyer. You sent this email out. What is that? What is this about? And one of the things I'm doing next year that I haven't done before is I'm going to plan to send out some flyers next year to some other districts that are a little further away from me, and if I get some feedback and some interest back, my plan is to actually do something very similar to this, which is to actually just host a virtual Zoom meeting with them so I can answer some questions ahead of time and say, hey, we'd love to have you here. we got, this school district, that school district here. And this is what we're looking to try to do. And this is why we're doing this. This is why it's so important for us to make sure that we can do this and be purposeful, proactive, and try to meet the needs that we need. That those are areas for me to try to do that. So in person, through this process here, sending out a flyer, something catchy. It's not that hard to use Canva to create something that's flashy and that you can send out. So, it just takes a little bit of time, a little concerted effort on your part to be able to do that. But if you have the capability and you have the support, by all means, I think it's worth your time to try to reach out for that reason.
In conversation with Jack, which Jack, by the way, are you in McGonigal Hall or the Leah Center right now? You can, I'm curious, you can respond in the chat if you want. But I also mentioned the idea of having a blend of different sessions and not just all go, 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 because curmudgeony old man me, like I like to kind of really geek out and get into the nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty of how to take a concept and break it down into its individual bite-sized digestible content blocks that a kid can understand, and that kind of thing. So, a frame of reference, I spent a good 20 minutes with Joey Fight, thephysicaleducator.com, discussing the reason for making contact with the ball in a baseball style game. And we sat there and debated what the actual function of that was. Eventually, he teased it out of me that it was to create time for your teammates to be able to advance to the next base and that kind of thing. So those kinds of elements too, I think they do have a target audience. It might not be as widespread as the go, go, go portions, but maybe some more low key, sit in a little conference room with a presentation up on a screen would be helpful.
All right, so speaking of advertising, just speaking on behalf of Shape PA, if you are planning these and you need some help, if you're doing multiple districts or IU, anything like that, feel free to reach out to us. We have our events page. We would be more than happy to extend that out. So then that way you are getting some more advertisement, some more feedback. So again, Liz spoke to it quite a bit. Use your resources. Use Shape PA. We're here. So feel free to send us an email that this is happening, and we would be more than happy to advertise and get that out there for you as well. All right. Are there any questions other than what's on Jack's picture background? Anybody that's here looking to do something like this, or kind of stuck your big toe in the water to see what it's like before? Any Gary, Daisy, I don't want to call you out, but feel free if Gary you have.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. First of all, thanks for having us all tonight. I think Joe and my other colleague Jen are on the call. The three of us are from Colorado. We're actually planning a summit. We call it the PE Health and PE Summit. It's June 3rd and 4th out here in Colorado, and Jen and Joe have been doing a lot of the work that you all described tonight. So it's really exciting to be a part of that. And I just figured that I would share it with you because a lot of the things that you all talked about, especially Dan, with the making sure that everything is standards based, and that we're not just having activity sessions. Those are things that we are purposefully providing professional development on for our presenters. So my role in the summit that we're putting on was to create guidelines and best practices for what we expect from our facilitators and to provide them with support leading up to our conference. So I just figured I'd throw that out there too as an idea. I don't know what capacity you all have, or if it's something that you'd be interested in talking about and collaborating at some point. But I think I'm assuming one of the reasons for this session tonight is because we've all been to PD that just feels like activities, right? Where there aren't connections to standards or instructional practices, things that are making teachers better teachers. They might walk away with 12 new games to share with their kids, but they don't connect them to, high quality instructional practices. So if that's something that you all are interested in, hearing about the program that we set up, and how we are ensuring that the people who come facilitate at our session are going to be facilitating high quality PD, I think it would be really cool to connect at some point and find out ways that we can collaborate. It was really cool to see Liz here tonight. I'm going to drop the link to the podcast that she did with me a few weeks ago. I'm sure you've all heard about it, but she should be really proud because it came out fantastic. And Dan, it's nice to see you as well. I know we've been emailing here and there, and hopefully we pick that back up soon.
Gary, I like to tell no one about anything that I do, so I guess
I know.
that's
I figured that. I figured that. I also think I mispronounced your name, Liz. So I'm gonna go back and fix that.
No, 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 it's all good. I will say though, through Gary's podcast, they are offering professional development courses. So it is just another great resource. And like I said from the beginning, this is not reinventing the wheel. It is just kind of funneling out. Dan mentioned Joey Fife, the PE specialist. There's so many great ones that are out there. So it's really just, again, filtering out the ones that do it well, open phys ed, all of these pieces, and then, starting small and figuring out if, and you have to have the why behind it. If the why is I want to provide, the best content and the most meaningful and relevant instruction for my students, then you're going to push yourself to do some PD, and figure out how to, bring that back in small chunks.
All right, so I'm sharing my screen just for contacts. If you want to take a screenshot or copy these emails down, if you hear something or if you have heard something and you want to know more about it, or if you are looking for more content ideas, feel free to reach out to one of our three panelists. So I will leave that up for a little bit in case you don't have their email addresses. All right. So Wendy reached out. Thanks so much. This has been very informative. I am new to the content specialist position to provide PD. I'm an elementary teacher in my 23rd year. Fantastic. That's awesome. This has opened my eyes to many options for PD. So kudos to the three panelists. Thank you, Wendy, for shouting that out. All right. Any other questions before we end here? All right. Liz, Sean, and Dan very much. Shout out to Jack as well. Him and I were back and forth, and he reached out to these three. And so thank you, Jack, for that. And then obviously, like I said, our three panelists absolutely crushed it. I think I speak for everyone when I say the information is very much needed and very much welcomed. So thank you so much.